Welcome Buck, baby. It's Jade Yurich, live from the White Lotus in Hawaii. Just kidding, I'm in Vancouver, but still, welcome back. Has anybody been watching White Lotus? Any White Lotus fans in the crowd? Let me know. We should have a conversation. What have I been up to since my last Buck Live? Well, it's been months, so I'm very happy to be back. I went and produced a Crave comedy series called I Have Nothing, starring Carolyn Taylor. And I produced a short film called Las Olas and directed a short film called Rally to Serve. And very excited to get those done and out there and share more about both of those short films. Both Buck Productions is all over it as well, helping us produce those. So super stoked, super happy that the time away sort of was a productive time. And now that we're coming back, we've got a lot of stuff in development. At Buck Productions, we've just brought on Brian Meadwell as our new head of branded content. We're diving into the script world with new projects on our slate with exciting showrunners. Keep an eye out for our upcoming press releases. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Currently, we're in development with MTV, and so we're super excited to start production on some stuff in 2023 with them. And yeah, there's just a lot of new unscripted shows that have been in production, and we're going to be able to speak about it more in 2023. So look forward to that. We're bummed that we can't say more about all of the awesome projects that we've got coming out the door. So stay tuned, as always. There's going to be a lot of awesome shit coming your way. So a little bit about our guest today, Mr. Robb Nash. Going to just read a little bit about his bio, and then I'm going to invite him in, and we're going to have a nice little podcast live stream conversation. So what has this tattooed rocker done to warrant your attention? And why has he been a keynote speaker for a Psychiatric Association of Canada conference and performed and spoken at maximum security prisons? Found with no pulse by the first responder, he resuscitated him, and while unconscious, they rebuilt his skull with titanium. When he awoke and began rehabilitation, he frankly did not want to be alive. My identity was lost, and that brought me to a very dark place for the next 2.5 years. He was able to deal with that darkness by channeling it into music, and after having 2 top 10 hits, Robb walked away from the industry. He had spent the last 10 years sharing his story to thousands of students across the country, changing lives, giving them purpose, erasing the stigma, and making it okay to be vulnerable and ask for help, all the while working on music and making the best songs of his career. Robb has hundreds of names and signatures tattooed on his arms, taken from over 900 suicide notes he's received from kids who experienced his show in person or from YouTube clips, and some of them have lyrics tattooed on them. It's a mutual relationship of acceptance and go forth and conquer. This Is War is his second album since leaving the music business. There might not be a more pronounced album full of anger, hope, and concern this year. Recently featured in CBC legend Peter Mansbridge's book called Extraordinary Canadians, Robb has won multiple awards, including the Meritorious Service Medal from the Governor-General of Canada in 2019. When it comes to people struggling with addiction and suicide, I truly believe we are losing some of the most gifted people. We try to help them channel those thoughts rather than shut them off. Robb says, adding that he has a team of psychologists follow one of his tours for months to measure its effectiveness, and now are one of his biggest supporters. Well, that was a mouthful from me, but let's pass it over to Robb at this point, and I'll bring him in, and he can tell his own story in his own words, and we can get to the Buck live stream.
I don't think you really need me. You nailed it. Everybody knows me now. I'm tall. I have a beard. I think that's what you didn't cover. Yeah.
How tall?
I'm 5'17".
I meant the beard.
Oh, how tall is the beard? Right now? It's been longer. It's been shorter, but yeah.
Well, welcome, man. Thank you for taking the time to do this with us. This is awesome.
Sure, Jade. Thanks, man.
I think, I mean, I have a bunch of questions and stuff, but I think the natural impetus for us having a conversation is the fact that you and Buck Productions worked together on a documentary. So I'd love to maybe just talk a little bit about that and where that's at and what stage it's at and how that came to be for you.
Yeah, well, it's you said a lot of what the project, and I had a band. I never really wanted to be a musician. Music was my worst mark in school, but I played music as a way to tell the story of everything that I had been through. And, when I walked away from my record deal and some top 10 hits, we started off with just me and an acoustic guitar going into some classrooms and stuff, telling my story. And then it what was supposed to be a 9-month tour just kept growing. But I didn't really say much to the media about what I was doing because, I never wanted anyone to think that this was a publicity stunt. Like if you're speaking to young people, whether it's a prison or reserve or school, like everybody's like, what's the catch? Like, what is this guy getting paid to do this? Or is this a publicity stunt? So I kind of, I knew if there'd be cameras around, people would be like, oh, okay, this guy's just trying to get attention. So we kind of kept the media out of it for the most part. But when COVID hit, we finished our last show. The shows had gotten really big. Our last show was at the arena in Medicine Hat, Alberta. And, thousands of kids there. And we did the show and then we walked off stage. And like so many people, COVID hit. And none of us knew, is this 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years as we've seen. But it was like, you know what, I just felt in my heart, it's going to be a while before they let, hundreds and thousands of kids into a big building to do a concert, what we had been doing. So I thought, what, it's time to share the stories of the people that we've met on this tour. As you mentioned in the bio there, we had 917 students that gave us their suicide notes after these shows that we were doing. And I thought, man, I think it's time to tell their stories. So Jeff Buckley, Buck Productions, he's friends with a guy named Andrew Murray. Andrew he's a film producer, has done some awesome work. And me and Andrew did a little piece together, and he really got why we were doing this. And so when COVID hit, I called Andrew and I said, hey, do you want to help me? I want to follow up with some of the students that gave us suicide notes. Like, where are they now? I think the world needs some stories of hope, right? And so we went around the country and we found, I think 6 different students and wanted to capture their stories. And so we put that together as a documentary. It's all finished now, and Buck Productions is helping us set up where that's going to be, what platform is going to be, Netflix or Amazon or Crave, or where it's going to be. So that's how we got involved with Buck. And you guys have been awesome in helping us get the word out there, because we got some big things coming.
Amazing. And I mean, I kind of like is a nice segue into kind of how I want to talk about, I suppose, other sort of, I guess, way, I mean, we'll get specific in how music and lyrics and that way of sort of like expressing and being able to like use a form to create a conversation, an art form to create a conversation. So I guess we'll stick with film just for the moment.
Sure.
And maybe talk about just how the documentary form in this sense was I guess a means to make a difference, to start a conversation, a means to obviously have the kids tell their stories as well. Like, what do you think is like, I guess, specific about the documentary and going with that and the intention there, and how that shapes how you do your thing, the whole project? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's got a TV in their house and a TV on their hand. You're walking around. We're all watching videos all day long, and unfortunately, I find that often, the media, when you're doing stories about mental illness, we focus and we there's a lot of stories of people that have taken their life, and we can learn from tragedy without question. So telling those stories is important because we can learn from that, but there seems to be a lack of balance of telling the stories of the survivors and the conquerors and the ones that are still here. And not every story of mental illness ends in a suicide. Not every story of addiction ends with an overdose. And I think people need to see that, So, when I talk about this car accident that I was in, like, people were so quick to ask me, like, me and my friends were going too fast on an icy road and we got hit by a semi-truck. We were being teenagers, right? And, they had to rebuild my skull with titanium. I got stainless steel here and a lot of injuries. I went from a 6'5" guy that played a lot of sports to a guy getting bathed by his mom, and people were so quick to ask, like, how's your skull pain? How's your shoulder? How's your back? All these different things. And nobody was asking the more important question is what's going on inside of that skull, the brain, because the physical stuff, that's one thing, but the mental, the emotional, the spiritual stuff going on when you go through something like that, that's the key. It's like, that's what was really the tougher struggle for me. And none of my friends knew, none of my family knew that I was dealing with those things, because we live in a society where you know, don't talk about your emotions, especially as guys, especially, you know, being athletic and being, you know, tough and all that stuff. Suck it up, be a man. So didn't talk about it. Nobody knew. Like so many, I'd be the life of the party and stuff, right? So I didn't talk about any of that stuff, and I kept it all inside. And I thought, when I got through that, it was about 2.5 years after high school that I was really, really struggling. And I got through that time, but I thought, how many other people are like me that are having those same thoughts and not talking about it? I'm like, well, dang, I gotta tell this story, you know, to get other people. So I don't like getting in front of thousands of strangers and being vulnerable. Like, it's not fun, but I know there's somebody else in the audience like me. Like, once I started, you know, hearing the stats from my Kids Health Fund, like pre-COVID, 1 in 5 teenagers had seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. 1 in 5. That's a lot, and people aren't talking about this except in the survey. So if we could use, even in our concerts, you know, we're telling stories and, you know, we're showing videos, and man, like, it can be captivating. We've got such a great crew with, you know, the film crew that put it together, and Buck Productions helping get it out there. And we got something powerful there that I think is going to inspire a lot of people.
Thank you for that answer, Rob. That was great.
I try.
I I wanted to, I guess, go into a little bit about your inspiration for what you do, and I guess maybe a little bit of the origin story behind just, you know, your journey as a musician here, and why, or maybe not why you picked it, or why, or how it picked you, sort of situation, and like, and how you turned it into something that is a vehicle for mental health discussion specifically.
Yeah. Well, I you know, I think for me, like so many people, like a song can calm you down before bed, and it can rile you up before a hockey game. Like it moves you. A song can bring you back to a moment, you know, and you know, some people would assume that all of my songs are just about like how great life can be and keep going. But, you know, my songs, like, I don't just talk about the times when I'm conquering. There's moments where I'm like, I'm struggling, and people need to, like, I found myself gravitating towards those songs just to realize, okay, somebody else has those same feelings, you know. And I grew up in a really musical family, but I never thought I'd do it for a living. You know, I auditioned for the choir in high school, and I didn't make it. My voice wasn't good enough. But, you know, for me, it wasn't about what I wanted to do, but it was about why I wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to tell a story. And I'm like, what's a good way to tell a story? And I was like, music's a good way. And started a band. I'm like, me and my band, we became best friends. And we had this goal. We were going to do something massive. And we start rehearsing, writing songs. And then we do the first show, and there's 4 people there. And it's like, come on, I wanted to, like, have a big impact. Where's the crowd? You know, now I listen back and I think, well, it's maybe good that there weren't too many people there, because we weren't very good, you know, and we got better and better. But, you know, we always had, it wasn't about just what we were doing, but why we were doing it, telling a story. And again, music, everybody, especially young people, you watch them walking down the street, everybody's got headphones in their ears. They're listening to something. And I think you got to be careful what you're feeding your soul, you know, because those lyrics, those songs, if you're not, they go from here to here, and that can be dangerous, but it can also be beautiful, you know.
Mm. How does music and writing just work as a way of therapy for you?
Yeah, well, I talk to a lot of people about that, actually. A lot of musicians come up and they say, like, and often it's a young band, like, hey, you know, like, I want to do what you do. And it's like, it's like, you know, for me, music in the beginning was a diary, you know, like, it was a way to express myself. And like I said, even if they're dark thoughts, if I could get them out of here and onto a page, into a song, that was gold. So when I meet young musicians, it's like, find out why you're doing it. Because if you're doing it because you want to be rich, you don't make money for a long time, if ever, in music. If you're doing it because you want to be famous, you don't sign autographs for a long time. But if you've got a why, like, you have something you want to share through a song, you know, like, and you want to pour your heart into it, that gets you through the days when there's 4 people in the audience and $4 in your bank account, you know. So for me, it totally is therapy, you know. And I've seen it so often. And I think, honestly, after talking with hundreds of thousands of teenagers on tour, you know, like, this just happened to me at the mall the other day. This girl walks up, she's crying. She says, Rob, I love your music, you know, and it helps me so much. She goes, I was diagnosed with depression. I have suicidal thoughts. And I was like, oh, so you're like me. And she's like, oh, what do you mean? I was like, you hurt deeply, but you love deeply too, don't you? She was like, yeah. I was like, you hurt deeply, but you can see when others are hurting, can't you? And she's like, yeah, I can. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you have what I have. And it sucks sometimes. You can help a lot of people with that emotion. Don't shut that off. Channel it. I'm like, so do you paint? Do you dance? Do you sing poetry? Like, what do you do? She goes, I'm a painter. How did you know? I'm like, you told me you have depression. I am convinced there's a connection between the arts and mental illness. Like, I would watch friends go through a tough day and they could wipe it off and keep walking. I couldn't. I'd go through something tough and it would wreck me. And I'd be like, I thought I was cursed with this extra emotion. And then I realized maybe this emotion isn't a curse, it's a gift. Maybe I have something I'm supposed to express. And I think that's why we see so many suicides in Hollywood, like artists, creative people, like look at Linkin Park and Nirvana and Chris Cornell, like, and Robin Williams, like artists that have all of this creativity. And if you, as you're, it can feel like a curse at times. Like my dad died this last year and I watched, you know, I watched my siblings, a lot of them were just like at the funeral, just telling fun stories. I could barely get through saying a word about my dad. And I always thought that was a curse, this emotion. I was like, no. It's like, so I looked at this girl, I'm like, yeah, you're not cursed, you're gifted. She goes, really? I said, yeah. And I think to myself, isn't it interesting? Like depression is very real, don't get me wrong. But it's interesting that we get diagnosed with depression. Nobody gets diagnosed with empathy. Like there's some beautiful parts of your emotion. Like keep expressing it, right? Man, we got lots of people commenting. I'm talking too much.
No, yeah. People, if you guys feel free to ask questions to like in the chat, in the comments in the chat. We can bring those questions right in. Something I pulled from the doc, just a line that I heard you say was these are names of people that are a part of me, in reference to the tattoos you have. I'm curious. I think obviously in sort of specifically helping youth and teens, the at risk sort of community. Is a community that I am sure, like, you know, at those ages, like it's difficult to feel seen and heard, and it's a difficult time, right? So I'm curious, I guess, just in terms of like what your strategy is. Obviously, this and having them there is a big physical part of it, and that's something. But I guess in addition to that, like I guess what is your way of seeing and hearing people's stories and being able to be very present with them, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, if I give an example of, you know, you meet somebody after a show, but I'll give the example of meeting somebody in prison. You know, you read a headline, you know, of somebody that's in prison, and the headline can be horrific, and you think like, how could you do something like that? And then you sit down with the person in prison, and they've heard my story. I'm like, what's your story? And then you sit down and you listen to them. You're like, huh, maybe I'd be here too. Like, I didn't. None of us choose where you're born, what family you're born into, what country you're born into. Like, you know, it's the lottery, right? And so when you meet somebody again, let's say in prison or in the Northern Reserve, and you listen to their circumstances and what they may have had happen in their family or their own life, that's once you hear their story, you're like, you start to have an understanding, you know, that maybe we're not so different, but sometimes our circumstances. And when you get them to believe in, they see that you believe in them. Like, I don't do what I do because I feel sorry for the people. As you mentioned in the intro, like, I think we're losing some of the most gifted people. I've never spoken at a funeral or sang a song where I've heard the parents go up and said, yeah, it's a good thing our daughter's no longer here. You know, she had nothing to offer this world. It's always the opposite. She was so gifted. How did she not see it? You know, like, their friends see it, their family see it. It's like, how did you not see it? How did they not know, right? And it's tough to see, but yeah, you know, when you talk about the tattoos, I see a lot of people joining now that maybe didn't hear the beginning, but like, you know, most musicians have tattoos, and I'm not that talented. I thought at some point I'm gonna have to get a real job, so I didn't just go out and get tattoos just to get tattoos. If I was gonna get something, it was gonna have to be something significant. And what rocked me was when I just started seeing so many people tagging me in photos, you know, with tattooing the lyrics of our songs on their arms where they used to cut, you know, and a quote from the show, and just, you know, I wrote that song in my bathroom, and now that's tattooed on somebody's arm, you know, and I'm like, how do I repay that if I'm not much part of that person's life? Like, they're a part of my life too. And then one night I had a dream, and I looked down and I saw all these names from the suicide notes we've been given. And well, yeah, there it is. So yeah, I went down, and some of them are just the names, but a lot of these are the actual signatures from the suicide notes. I sang the anthem at an NHL game one day, and then the woman selling 50-50 tickets, she walks by and she goes, "Can I see your arm?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I showed her my arm, and then she goes, "I thought you were kidding." Like, she goes, "That's my daughter's name right there." She goes, "I know how much you mean to her, but that's her handwriting." And she was just so moved, you know, and I'm like, wow. Like, because we don't always get to meet the people, right? We don't always get to, you know, meet the parents, and you know, it's part of the tough part of what we do, you know. We're a small part of somebody's recovery from mental health or addiction or whatever. We talk about a lot of things in our content, but yeah, to be a small part of somebody's breakthrough. Like, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist. I'm there to get the conversation started. That's about it, you know.
Right.
And I see a few people asking, like, "Hey, where do we see this documentary?" Mentioned it earlier, but it's done. But we are right now just negotiating and stuff like that of exactly where we can get it seen by the most people. So, so where in Canada, where in the United States, all that stuff. So we're working on that. And Buck Productions, who we're talking with right now, they're a part of us making that happen. So, but I will say this: one awesome part of it is there's the documentary, but somebody from our team named Linda, she was a teacher in Quebec, and you know, she has her master's degree in curriculum writing. So we got some input from teachers and social workers and counselors, psychologists, and we took it. We took the documentary, we turned it into a curriculum. So in 7 provinces and 1 territory, students are sitting in school watching pieces of the documentary right now, and it is available for free. So people sit in class and they watch a 10-minute movie about my story, and then a music video, and then they journal in their computers what was Rob's struggle, what was his breakthrough, how did he get help, and how is he helping other people now with his story. And then they watch one of these stories the next day and they journal about them. And so people are getting to see pieces of the documentary. So if you're a student, a teacher, or in your community, if you see the need in your community with mental health and among the youth, this is available. You go to robnash.ca and you can email and call us and find out more about the curriculum. And we don't charge anything to the schools for this. We try to fundraise to do it all for free because we know there's a lack of support for funding for this type of stuff. So,
in terms of, I mean, I'm curious now, just to go back for you, like, to maybe a flashback moment of what it was like for you in your upbringing, and any conversations that you ever heard, or even when you, like, kind of realized that mental health was even a thing. Like,
yeah.
What was that, like, moment for you of, like, sort of being like, what is mental health in your life? You know?
Yeah, well, I think mental health is like physical health. Like, there's days you feel 100%, there's days you feel 80. You know, like, I just feel off today. You know, so everybody has bad days with their mental health. Now, some people don't know what it's like to get down to 5% and 2%. You know, and so there's the extremes and stuff like that. But you know, but it is like we all have our off days where you just don't feel like, you look in the mirror and you're not sure who you are or what you're doing, or you lack, you know, identity. You know, and I think that what's really misunderstood is when people talk about suicide, you know, they often say it's a selfish act because you take your pain and you give it to the people around you. And yeah, that happens. But if you've never been to that place where you feel suicidal, you don't get that in that moment, the lie in your head is the most selfless thing you could do is leave. You feel like you're a burden to your family and your friends, and you're convinced that the world would be better without you. So when you realize that, and I think a key moment that, you know, Jade, you've seen the documentary. You're one of a few that have so far, but there was a moment, like in the beginning when I did these concerts, you know, I talked about, hey, this happened to me, I had a big car accident, I got a second chance, but make every day count, because you don't know if you got tomorrow, right? And we got called to a school in Ontario, and this was kind of a key moment for me, where the principal said, can you come right away, because they had a suicide. And on this girl's note, it was revealed that she had a deal with one of her friends, like, if you kill yourself, I'll kill myself. And the principal said, we don't know who it is. Can you come right away? So we went, and we're doing this show, and there's whatever, 700 students in front of me, or 1,000 or whatever. And it was an odd feeling. Somebody in front of me was about to take their life, and I didn't know where they were sitting. And I knew in my gut, I had to say it for the first time. I've never said this to my friends, my family. None of my band knew that I had ever been there. And I felt this moment in the show. I'm like, I got to say it, that I was there once too. And I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. And I'm like, what are they going to think of me? What are the students going to think of me? What are the staff going to think of me? My band, if I reveal that I was weak once. And I just looked at the audience and I said, I know somebody here is thinking about taking your life, and you're not alone. I was there once too. And I braced, but it was like, oh, that felt good just to get that out, you know. And then the relationship between me and the audience went to another level, and I'm getting hugs, and this conversations were beautiful. And then this girl pulls a note out of her pocket, and, you know, sometimes people want an autograph or a selfie, and I'm like, what's this? She goes, my suicide note. I want you to have this. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, I was going to kill myself this weekend. I don't need this anymore. And then she gives me a hug, and she walks off with the school counselor and to get the help that she needs. I was so confused. This note, she didn't write that while I was performing. She had it in her pocket. I was so confused. And then I spoke with a policeman who deals a lot with teen suicide. And they said, yeah. Rarely is the note freshly written when they come on the scene. People usually carry that note around with them for 2 to 3 months, waiting for somebody to push them over the edge, or for somebody to reach out and say, hey, you're not alone. And so then it was the next day, we're doing another concert. I'm like, another 1,000 students in front of me. I'm like, I said it again, and it was easier the second time. I'm like, I know somebody here is thinking about taking their life. You're not alone. I was there once too. And a young man gave me his note, and 917 suicide notes later. And that doesn't include all the ones on Instagram and Facebook and just sending us pictures and videos of ripping up their notes. If you actually go to YouTube, check, look Robb Nash, and there's a song called Thief of Colors that we play, and the entire video is filled with, you've seen the tattoos, the lyrics, and kids ripping up their notes. And when we play our concerts, there's big LED walls behind us, and they see these music videos, and they're like, I want to rip up that note. I'm worth fighting for. I see that value. Somebody asked, I'm trying to watch as we're having a good conversation here.
Yeah.
But somebody asked for the curriculum, like what ages, what grades and stuff. But it really depends on the community of the school. Schools know sometimes it's grade 11s and 12s are taking other communities. They're showing to grade 5s and 6s depending on the need in the community. Like, you know your students, you know what's going on, and it is getting younger and younger. Like when we started this tour, what the grade 12s were doing is now what the grade 8s are doing. What the grade 8s are doing is what the grade 5s are doing. So I hate to say it, but we did get called to one community where they lost an 8-year-old, and that shouldn't be an option at 8 years old. Heavy, right? But and I'll say this, Jade, you probably won't ask this, but 1 in 5 teenagers, like I said, was struggling with their mental health, feeling suicidal. But in the audience, 4 out of 5 are like, hey, we're at a concert. Let's have a good time. So we're telling jokes. We're having a good time. And one thing I saw somebody ask if I do some of my voices, like we legit, somebody like, you should be a comedian, because I do all the Family Guy voices during the show and stuff. And we have a ton of fun on stage too, because like nobody wants to just hear about dark topics the whole time. So we have a lot of fun doing what we do.
That's awesome. I love that. Comedy is one of my strong suits. So I love that you incorporate that, because as imagining myself as a teenager in the crowd, you want something that's going to be accessible, right? And you want to be involved. I'm going to just kind of like shift the conversation just a slightly different way, just to kind of see where we go with it. But it is to do with like audiences and I guess maybe the pressure to make it, and not only I guess personally, but just with the band, and like and getting to a certain, like putting pressure on yourself to get to a certain level, to get to a certain point of recognition. I remember in the doc, it's like there was this moment in Kitchener when you were super surprised that people were singing your song. Um, I'm curious about those significant moments along the way, but I'm also like, that pressure must get to you too, in a way, right? Like, because there's this sense of like, and talking about a lot of artists who, you know, are super creative and take their life, or like that are, you know, sort of like they're higher functioning creatives that have, you know, depression and anxiety, and deal with these things, and it's like it's difficult to deal with those things. So it's just it's a rat race, and there's a lot of pressure to be very successful in this world, and I'm just curious like what your take is on that, and like on like making it for yourself, but not having to just like make it by superficial standards, I guess.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's a really good point, man. You're asking really good questions that most people don't think of. But you know, when we had top 10 hits on the radio, we were sharing the stage with some really big bands, and
Yep.
you meet them backstage, and you know they're so successful, and you think when you meet them they're all going to be so fulfilled, you know, and not always, but often they're really empty, you know, and I think in Hollywood has really chased success, like these, you know, it's in the U.S. it's like the pursuit, what is I don't
Pursuit
know,
of happiness, or
yeah, the happiness and, you know, pursuit of success, and you know it's pushing for that. But I'm always, there's one other level. There's actually a great book. It's called From Success to Significance, and that's when your success actually matters, you know, and is making an impact on the world around you. And there's nothing wrong with success. That's great, but to do something with it, you know, like when I walked away from a record deal, you know, then people were like, "Wow, that was so sacrificial that you do that." This doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Like, this is fulfilling. This stirs me, you know, like, yeah, you walk away and all of a sudden your song, they just stop playing on the radio, and you know, that was fun. You know, it was fun crowd surfing and all that stuff, and playing you know, and like the show you're talking about in Kitchen, there's like 15,000 people there, and you see them sing along. That's cool. But these moments when you see, you know, somebody having a breakthrough, you know, during a concert, and sitting down when, you know, going to Nunavut and sitting down with people and just getting to share an experience together with them, like that's not just feels like success, that feels like significance. Like that feels good, and more people should be chasing that taste of significance, not just success, right?
Would you say that you are a spiritual person? Like, do you feel like there's a higher power, and that there's like something that you sort of, I mean, I guess, you know, can, I guess just feel, you know, some sort of manifesting towards that, or something in the sense of like, you know, general question.
Oh yeah, without question. Well, I've died, so I'll write a book about some of the stuff that has come to me from that. But I'll say this, that you know, I grew up in a really religious home, really legalistic, and I think often, not always, but religion is taught that, you know, like we're just weary souls walking this earth to one day experience peace in the afterlife. And for me, that peace, I think we can discover that here. And you know, I'm not trying to push or sell anything to anybody. You know, like people often say, "What does it feel like to save a life or to change a life?" I'm not trying to save anyone's life or change anyone's life. You know, conviction doesn't come from me. Conviction comes from within. It doesn't come from a stage or come from a pulpit, you know. And I'm just trying to get people seeking again, you know, like I think, you know, I'm trying to get people to ask questions. And I think we've got to get back to that. What if there's more to me than suicide? What if there's more to me than this addiction? What if I have purpose? Because I think if you start asking those questions, you'll find the answers. And I have faith in that. Like I really do. And, you know, I don't get super into it, but you'll hear it in my songs, you know, like, you know, you'll hear me talk about it without question. You know, my spiritual walk's massive. And I'll tell you this, a lot of people in my family, I had somebody very close to me in my family, I won't say who, but outright said to me that God spanked me with a semi because I was a bad kid. That's why I had my accident. And I was like, wow,
Okay.
that's how life
Oh,
is. You know, I'm like, great. Yeah, sign me up. So that just made me angry. Or people would say
Right.
everything happens for a reason. People say that all day long, and I get it. And a lot of people have taken that saying and done something great with it. And when people told me everything happens for a reason, that brought me to a much darker place. Well, what's the reason I was hit by a semi-truck? Why not everybody else? If this is how life is, you screw up and you're punished. And then it was like 2.5 years later, somebody walked up and he goes, you're trying to figure out the reason this happened to you, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I know what it is. I'm like, what's the reason? He goes, you and your friends were going too fast on an icy road. Shit happens. What are you going to do with it? And I was like, and it was all of a sudden, I was no longer angry at fate. I wasn't angry at God. I was like, holy cow. And I talked about this in my show where I was like, okay, I got a second chance. Maybe I should do something with it. And I was like, okay, I got to do something. I screamed at the sky and I was like, I'm going to do something that matters. Like, I want my life to count, right? And I thought I'd hear a prompting in my heart to tell me to move to a third world country and build a well, and I would have done anything I felt in my heart that day. And
Right.
this is what I felt, clear as day. You talk about, my spiritual person. This is what I heard. You get those promptings. Phone the semi-driver and tell him you're alive. And I was like, what? And I phoned the police. I'm like, yo, can I get the phone number of the semi-driver that ran me over? And the cops are like, no. I'm like, okay, I tried. Hung up the phone, but this voice wouldn't leave me alone. And I finally got a hold of this trucker from the States. And I said, this is so-and-so. And it got real quiet. He goes, yeah. I said, I just felt in my heart that I was supposed to call you and tell you, like, I'm alive. I'm okay. I made it. And he starts crying. He says, I'm just so sorry about your friend. I'm like, what friend? He goes, your friend that died and crushed his skull. I'm like, no, that's me. That's why. And he told me he hadn't driven a vehicle since that day. Like, it wasn't his fault. It was my friend's fault, but it was haunting him. And we talked and he was set free. But the important part of that story isn't what happened to him. It's what happened to me. I was like, oh, that felt good. And I didn't have to move to a third world country. Like, man, I just had to make a phone call, but that felt good. I want more of that. And I was like,
Absolutely.
give me some more. And it became a new addiction. And man, I wake up every day and I'm like, I got to learn something or teach something today. I'm available to listen to those promptings. And once you start doing that, it's amazing what you start to see, and it can be the simplicity of things, like,
Totally.
we did a show on a reserve, 4 hours from a major city. Okay. Normally, like, and side note, when we started going to reserves, there was some tension. It's like, here comes a white boy to save the day, right? There's tension, right? What is this genuine? Because people can smell bullshit a mile away, right? And we started doing these shows, and once they saw it was genuine, not only were we embraced and accepted on the reserves, but I was given my spirit name. They call me Bear Chief in the Indigenous people. That's why I have Bear here and with Chief across the fingers. Like, and to get that, I'm not Indigenous, but they said the bear is the protector, and we're not just calling him Bear, but Bear Chief, because you're protecting our youth. And I was so moved by that. But we did one show on a reserve, 4 hours from a major city. And I look in the audience and I see two black nuns in the audience. And I was like, I haven't seen this before. So I walked up and I'm like, I got to know you're smooth. Where are you guys from? And they're like, Africa. I'm like, what are you doing here? And they said, our church in Africa heard about the issues on the reserves in Canada. They raised money and they moved us here and got us a vehicle. And we drive to the city on weekends and we go grocery shopping. And we live here and we feed the kids at lunch that don't have food.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, there are nuns and we know about the history between the church and Indigenous people, but they were pure, they were accepted. You could see the communion that they had with these kids. They were part of their community. And I'm thinking, the layers to that story, like, what did they have to raise in their currency? How often are we sending our money to other countries? And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But they come here, and how many people in Canada have ever taken a drive 4 hours to see what's going on in our own backyard? Like that, that moved me, And I thought that was that I'll never forget that day. That was really something.
We got one from the people here, Rob. It's Colleen saying "One Last Breath" is one of my favorite songs. What inspired to write this song?
Yeah, yeah. One Last Breath. Yeah, I wrote that about. That's kind of my theme song, really. It's you know, my story. Everything you read in the beginning of this, and me telling you we were hit by. I don't remember getting hit by a semi truck because of the brain damage. I don't remember being in a hospital. It's a story I've been told. I'm missing. I don't remember coming home. I don't remember. I don't remember the first parts of going back to school or anything because my brain just hadn't caught up yet, right? And I've been told this story, and I used to have a nightmare every night when I would be falling asleep because I would see my own funeral and nobody showed up. Nobody cared that I lived or that I died because I had never done anything for anyone but me. And so I wrote this song, like, I got one last breath to say sorry. I got one last breath to make things right. What could we do with, I got one more day. What can I do with this day? You know what I mean? And yeah, if you're watching this, if you're, like we're alive, we are here. And I, we don't have to wait to hit rock bottom. I don't want people to go through what I did before they make every day count. I got into a great argument with one radio DJ, I won't say from where, but he goes, "Well, Rob, it's kind of good that you were hit by that semi truck, isn't it?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "But look what you've done with it." I'm like, "The semi didn't make me do this." He goes, "But if you could go back in time, you'd do it all over again, wouldn't you?" I'm like, "No, I wouldn't." He goes, "Oh, you're young, you don't get it. You'll see one day that you had to go through that to think and believe the way you do now." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Look, if you can convince me by the end of this interview that I had to get hit by a semi to think the way I think now," I said, I'll quit my tour. I'll sell all my guitars. I'll get a semi license and I'll start running people over." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa." I'm like, "Well, like, yes, you can learn from tragedy without question, but we can tell each other our stories. You can learn from the mistakes your parents made, brothers and sisters. I tell my story again, so you have to go through what I did. Learn from the stories of the people you've seen." And then he goes, "Well," he goes, "Do you know Rick Hansen?" I'm like, "Yeah, the guy in the wheelchair." He goes, "Yeah. He says he's happy that he's in a wheelchair because he's what he's been able to do with his story." I'm like, "That says a lot about Rick Hansen, not about wheelchairs. Not everybody in a wheelchair has done what he's done.
Right.
He made choices to take his tragedy, do something with it." And so we go back to that statement of everything happens for a reason. All of a sudden it clicked for me one day, and this is what I say is bad things don't happen for a reason. They happen with potential. My accident had the potential to leave me angry and bitter and suicidal for the rest of my life. Or there's the potential you can take your story, turn around, do something with it, but you got to take choice. I'm seeing names on here that I don't know. Maya just jumped on right there. All of those hearts right there. Maya, I hope you're okay with me saying this, but we met her in a lockdown facility in Calgary, and we did this. I'm telling my story, and then she starts telling me her story, and same thing. I said she's been through a lot, and I was like, suicide attempt, and I was like, "You got to keep going. Somebody needs your story." I'm like, "Hey, you got to channel this. Do you same thing? Do you paint again?" And she's like, "I love to sing and play guitar." I'm like, "I write music." I'm like, "Can you show me something?" So she starts playing the song, and we record it. She didn't know, but we're recording with our phone. It was a beautiful song called Choices. And then, yeah, we went back, we left, and we took the track, and we produced the track, and kind of cleaned it up nicely and added all the drums, the guitars, and all that. We came back a little while later, and we set up a little studio right there in lockdown, and we recorded her vocals and then showed her the song. And yeah, it was really, really something. And yeah, when she was released, she asked if she could stay and help mentor the younger kids that were still there. And it was amazing. And when we do our shows, I would tell her story, and I'll be like, we talk about this girl we met, and everybody's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Do you want to meet her?" And then she'd come up on stage and perform with us. And yeah, I wrote a song about her story called Shadows. And yeah, if you go watch that YouTube video, you'll see that day we met her in lockdown, all the way to her performing at the Calgary Saddle Dome with us.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. Well, I have, I guess, a twofold finisher as we sort of come to our closing moments here,
Sure.
Rob. Thank you very much. I just want to say we appreciate you for taking the time once again to do this and to continue. I guess like the thing is like controlling the narrative and controlling your narrative too, right? Like having the agency and ability to make the choice to want to live a better life too, right? And not let something fucked up fuck you up forever,
Yeah.
you know, too. I guess the twofold question, this is what always happens at the end of this is usually a moment for you to sort of shout out anybody along the way that's sort of been there for you and to talk about your team. But then the other thing is like, what's next for the Rob Nash project and how, this is a lot of questions, I'm sorry.
No.
And the main thing is like anybody watching who needs help, what would be a good resource for them?
Yeah. Um, there was 12 questions there. Thanks for
I'm
that,
so
Jade.
sorry.
um, honestly, I see people jumping on here. There's Nikki, Cheyenne. Cheyenne's in the documentary. Nikki, her name's on my arm. These are really these aren't fans. This is family. And I really feel like we're creating an army of people, emotional freaks. That we're like, we got something to offer this world, and I want these stories to keep flowing. And I don't think I'm the next big thing, but I think some of the people that we've met will be. And at one of the awards I got, I'll tell you this, I was backstage, and the other three guys getting the award were wearing their army fatigues and a couple missing limbs. And I'm getting the same award, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I'm just a musician. And it was actually funny. The one guy, he turns and he looks at me. We're backstage, and he goes, "Hi." I'm like, "Hey," and he goes, "I'll have another glass of champagne, please." I'm like, "Oh." He thinks I'm a server. I'm like, "Oh, dang." I'm like, "No, I'm actually. You know what? I'll just go get you that glass of champagne." But I'm thinking, what am I doing here? But then they said, this next person, when they're introducing me, is he's fighting a different kind of a war against an invisible enemy called mental illness. And I was like, wow. And I'm like, I'm going to write about that one day. And, when COVID hit, I had been touring so much that I didn't have much time to write. I didn't know how much I had inside of me, so I started writing. And on that theme of war, wrote this new new album called This Is War. And there's 18 songs, and there's moments where you're on the front lines. There's moments you feel defeated. There's moments in the album where you're in triage, trying to recover. And there's moments you're in triumph and you're in victory mode. It's the full scale. And, we've had so many people come along. We don't get any money from the government. Everything we've done is people donating to us. We've got airlines like Perimeter Airlines that would fly us up to reserves up north for free. We had a couple that we had never met before that bought us a tour bus with 15 flat screen TVs inside, buys and transport, paid for the gas in it. Nash Guitars out of Washington, they build these guitars for me. I'll tell you this, I was doing a show in Vancouver. This is after I walked away from the record deal, and I'm like, oh, the studio I recorded the big album at is down the street. So I popped in, and all these producers are there, the multi-platinum producers, and I'm sitting there, and they looked at me like, Rob, like, what happened to you? Like, we were doing something big, and I told them what we were doing. I said, do you want to come see them? Talking with some school down the street, so they came to watch the show, and Steve Smith and Anthony Anderson, multi-platinum producers, are like, we're in. I'm like, what in what? We want to be a part of this thing, and we don't care if you don't have a record deal anymore. So they joined in, and they they've produced all my stuff for free ever since that day. They're unbelievable. Then they started going on tour with me, and Anthony playing guitar and Steve mixing. Steve is the vice president of the project now, and then when we started writing this album, he's like, hey, if we're sharing these stories with the documentary, can we share your songs with the world again? I'm like, sure. So they started meeting with their colleagues, Jeff Rogers, Eric Alper, and they start talking then to Stephen Stone, entertainment lawyer. And then all of a sudden we're on the phone with Warner Music, Steve Cody and their crew there. And they said, we're in. And so with almost no strings attached, Warner Music is making that album and pushing that out there. So yeah, songs. Well, yeah, right. There's so many. I wish I could tell you all about the people behind this thing that make it go, but there's so many amazing people that have allowed us to do what we do. But the important people are the students that are still here and that have stories to tell, and we want to keep telling those stories. So even if if you're going to watch that curriculum in journal, we want to tell those stories from the journal one day too. There's people need these stories of hope and help. The documentary will be out soon. We will announce it endlessly as soon as it's all nailed down. The curriculum is available. Just go to robnash.ca. The album is Spotify, Amazon. It's everywhere. And yeah, a kid's cell phone. With our partnership there, you can just text Nash to 686868. Goes right to kid's cell phone, and they got amazing people there because it takes a village to raise a person, a child. It also takes a village to destroy one. So we've got a lot of great people that we're connected with, and I really do feel deeply for teachers. You're taught to teach math, and suddenly you're a parent, and you're a life coach, and you're a counselor. A lot of it you're not trained for, and teachers have an incredibly difficult role, but they play a massive part of what we do as well. So there's a lot of pressure. I'll say this, that I had my accident when I was in high school, and suddenly I was isolated, and I wasn't able to be with my friends. I was home. I wasn't able to play sports. I know what that did to me. So when COVID hit, I was like, now they're going to do this to everyone. And I get it. We had to be careful. In the beginning, we didn't know what was all going to happen, but the long-term effects of what's happened to people's mental health because of this, depression and isolation are bad combo. So we are just trying to do everything we can to get these stories out there to everybody. Man, why do you want to hang up so bad, Jade? There's so many great comments. There's Sun.
Let's hit him.
That was a dang good day.
Ocean, thank you for continuing to inspire our youth and being so raw and genuine and who you are and what you stand for. April Cole, I don't know if you remember, but in 2020, you came to Medicine Hat and sang a couple songs to us at the co-op place. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'll tell you, I hated presentations when I was in school. So I'm like, if we can make something memorable and cool and do something good with it, that'd be awesome. I remember being in April. But in 2020, came and sang Medicine Hat. Yep. Absolutely. I remember that. Love your songs, Rob. Thank you. Hey, Pauline, what's up? You read some out too. I just,
yeah.
And I loved you. So when I mentioned Maya, talking about her and doing that song together with her, you see people just loving on her with this family that we have. Love the guitars. I'll tell you this, guys. Nash guitars, if you get a chance, they let me handpick the woods. Like, this is a brand new guitar. That's how they made it, and handpick them. They're incredible, and they let me auction off the guitars at the end and to support the tour. If you're okay with it, Jade, you good with me just going through some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, also, Rob, feel free if you would want to play or something too. The stage is yours, the floor is yours, my man.
I appreciate it. It's all. I'm actually not a musician. It's just I just lip sync. I'll never forget you came to St. James and how I got to talk to you. I'm glad that was memorable. Jade, you should be a model. Jade, you're getting some love here, bro.
Who said that?
Oh, you want to know this one, eh? B.E. Spokeville? I don't know.
Oh, Bespokeville, yeah. It's one of our side companies at Buck.
Oh, see.
Ripping.
Getting some love.
I need a nice tux.
That better be Starbucks. It is not. I don't know why I'm drinking coffee at this hour.
You sing one song for us all. Oh, Colleen wants a song. They want it. They want your voice, my man. They want it.
I'm not going to sing right now. I don't know if you can hear it. Pretty rough, bro. How about we do a duet, me and you, Jade?
What would you like to sing?
Okay, the Hanukkah song.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. Over to Rob.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful squirrel, or something.
or was it a chipmunk?
Yeah. I'll look more into it for my son's school, even though it won't be for his grades, but I'll reach out. I love it. Thank you for
Oh,
that.
thanks.
The stigma
Thanks,
needs
yeah.
to be broken. The mental health topic is so tragic to talk about. The only way to break the stigma is to talk about it more without a question, Shy. Cheyenne. Hey, Brittany.
Oh yeah. I mean, part of why it's so awesome to have social media. I mean, social media can be awful in certain ways. There's a lot of, shit out there, but when we can take time like this to have people, get together, and this is community, this is belonging, this is a bunch of emotional freaks getting together and having a good time.
You like that, right? Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. I've seen you live in Killam, Alberta. Shook my hand, spoke about your story. It was very inspiring to see you and what you stand for, especially where I was at the time. Thank you, Ocean. I'm glad you're in a better place. Rob, can I bite your arm? Do you want to know why they're asking that?
Why?
Because I a lot of injuries, but one of them is I lost the feeling in this hand, this arm, these fingers. So I can't feel with these three. It's just, when it's asleep, just the tingling. So I was so I can't feel. I can just hold a pick, but I can't finger pick. And so I told that, and then this is one school. All of a sudden, this person goes like, "So you can't feel with your arm?" Am I correct? And they kind of called my bluff. They're like, "Could I bite your arm?" I was like, "You want to bite my arm?" So I'm like, "Okay." I thought they'd take a little nibble, and just rips into my arm, and I had teeth marks for a long time, but it worked.
April's asking here, do you have any of your other songs on your IG page? Like, where is it like the main place for people to find your music and listen to it?
Anywhere you listen, Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify. If you want to see the lyrics and stuff, lyric videos are all made on YouTube. iTunes, if people still do that, which I do. This would be worth going back to school for. Yeah. You know what's interesting? We had to stop saying which schools we were going to, because all of a sudden principals were freaking out because they're like, we have 200 extra students. So students were skipping school to go to a different school because they found out we were there. It's like, and again, I used to skip those presentations. So
true, skipping to go to yours.
That's so Nikki says here, I asked her to send me her signature, and she didn't know what for, and that was when we were tattooing and started all that. My ink has helped me a lot. Yeah, it's pretty neat. She's in Saskatchewan. She's one of my favorite people.
Where is your next stop?
Well,
do you have anything lined up?
We're not going to be doing concerts anytime just yet. We're letting the curriculum do the work. But for all the schools that are signing up, what we want to do is kind of have like a celebration concert for all the students. So but it's going to take a little bit to get that all done. So
absolutely,
yeah.
I just like grinding. I want to know. I want dates.
I know. We will be announcing.
I want to lock it in.
Well, now you've auditioned, so we'll do a duet, bro. You showed me up.
What's your favorite pre-show meal?
Pre-show meal. I don't like to eat a lot before singing, because then I got stuff flying out of my mouth and into my beard. So is
there a post-show delicious combination you like to enjoy?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. We found Popeyes is good. We find some really nice little gem restaurants all around the country and stuff. I love the East Coast, the Maritimes. We haven't been there in a minute, but the seafood out there is unreal. Hey, Rob, I love music. I listen to it. It helped me out during high school.
Versus hummus. Hummus is great. Hummus is filling.
Yeah, we did a lot of hummus on the tour bus. Yeah. And it's so funny, like when you have a record deal and you songs on the radio, you think you get free guitars and a tour bus. That doesn't happen, but people that believe in what we do now, all these wonderful things happen. We've had such great support. And so I don't know. I probably can't go through all these questions, but I do want to thank you, Jade, and everybody at Buck Productions. You guys are, you believe in not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. And it takes a team to do this. So thank you for spending time with, and let's do this again if you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's same time next week. Let's do it.
That sounds good.
But hope you have a great holiday, my man, with you and your family and the rest of the Robb Nash Project team, and keep us abreast of all the good updates and when things are locked in, and if you ever, want anything, need anything, you have my number, so you can find me.
Okay. Actually, if anybody wants his number
is Nash at 686869.
Yeah.
That's Kid's help phone. All right.
That's right.
Well, have a great night, my man.
Awesome.
And we'll be reposting this for everybody to watch it again and get, share it around. And I hope everybody enjoys our chat.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it, Jade. Thank you for everybody for sitting in here with us too.
That was Robb Nash on Buck Live, guys.
Peace.
Can't get any better than that.